All right, we're back, you guys. The 2-week break is finally over. We have survived, and we are back with One Piece Chapter 1131 spoilers. So if you haven't read them yet, I'm going to be linking them all down below in the comment section. It's going to be the pinned comment. So if you haven't read them, go read them right now. Shout out to Pew Piece as per usual. But yes, we're going to hop into it and just discuss what the hell is going on in this week's chapter. So to kick things off, we see Loki being an absolute monster yet again. Last week, he said that he was the sun god, he was going to destroy the world, and this week, he starts off with the same level of heat, telling Luffy that if he releases him from his chains, which are sea stone by the way, that he would kill any pirate crew Luffy desires. Bro, what? What? Loki, what are you talking about here? Of course, he probably dropped this line on the worst person possible, right? If you put another pirate captain in front of Loki, I think they would be very enticed to release him. Like put Kaido, Big Mom, Kid over here, Blackbeard. My God, a lot of people would have let this guy go yesterday. But Luffy stands his ground and Loki switches to another tactic. He instead calls Shanks a chicken. He called Shanks a loser. Luffy doesn't take that lightly. Actually, Luffy immediately lashes out and whips out Gear 4th and attacks Loki. Even though Loki is chained up, Luffy goes Gear 4th and hits him. Loki afterwards says that he's just joking, and he just said the Shanks is a chicken part to get Luffy riled up. He knows that Luffy and Shanks have that connection, and he just wanted to poke the bear a little bit. Luffy is still wondering how Loki knows Shanks specifically, and Loki says, hey, if you want to know more, brother, release me from these chains. And of course, coming off of last week's chapter, I saw the polls. People were going in on the vote of whether or not Luffy would release Loki. I saw it. 12,000 people voted. 90% of the people who voted said that Luffy would release Loki. Of course, they didn't know why, but I think we have a pretty clear indicator in this chapter as to why he would do it, right? Luffy doesn't really care about too many things. He cares about meat, his crew, and Shanks. So, you got Shanks in the conversation. I think Luffy will be very curious to see where this goes. Of course, Luffy releasing a big bad villain like Loki doesn't seem like a good idea, but of course, I want to believe that Luffy knows what he's getting himself into, right? He hit Loki in this chapter in Gear 4th, so maybe based off of that, Luffy's like, okay, if I have to, I can take this guy down. But of course, Luffy has no idea what Loki's powers are yet, right? He's still sea stoned up, so maybe Loki breaks out and then he gets a lot stronger than what he seems to be while imprisoned. Oh yeah, since we're on the topic of power levels, we also get Loki's special bounty reveal in this chapter, and it is 2.6 billion berries. So Pew Piece and Redon, the leakers, they said that Loki has a special reward bounty. We're not too sure what that means yet. Usually when there's a bounty reveal, they just say bounty reveal. So there's something about Loki's bounty poster that differentiates him from the rest of the pack. I'm assuming it's gonna be something like Sanji's bounty poster in the past where it said wanted only alive. Maybe Loki is the exact opposite. Maybe he's only wanted dead, or maybe Loki is only wanted captured, or, I guess alive, yeah. As far as why Loki might be a special case, it could be because the world government knows what devil fruit he has. Maybe they want to use his devil fruit for something else. Kind of like how Luffy, he has the sun god Nika fruit, and we're theorizing that Luffy could recreate the mother flame or something like it, right? He has the drums of liberation, that could fuel up Emeth. Maybe Loki, if he does have the sun god fruit or something akin to it, maybe they want to use his powers as a fuel source. Or going to a different direction, Loki is nobility. He is the Prince of Elbaf. So maybe there is just a special bounty placed on princes, and that is what we have here. There's a lot of different routes we could go with that, but yeah, Loki, he is hit with a 2.6 billion berry bounty. And while that is impressive, I don't want to sound like a down player, but in the grand scheme of things, right, now that we're in the final saga, 2.6 billion isn't making me sweat that much. Of course, bounties don't equal power. That has never really been a direct correlation there. I think it parallels pretty well, but it's not directly tied, right? There's always bounties that are outdated, bounties that are frozen, bounties that are uneducated, even like choppers. So yeah, like maybe this bounty doesn't indicate that he's weaker than Luffy right off rip, but 2.6 billion, like we kind of get a base level of where he's at. and Luffy being 3 billion, pushing upwards to maybe 4 after Egghead. I just don't see this as super threatening right away. But of course, I would love to hear what you guys have to say about that. How do you feel about Loki's 2.6 billion berry bounty? Does it make you sweat at night, right? How does it make you feel, guys? So outside of this, though, I just want to say that I do see Luffy releasing Loki. Like, when it comes to Shanks, I think he does want to know more about Shanks, because from Luffy's perspective, if I recall correctly, he hasn't really heard much about Shanks throughout the series. You know, there's not many people that go up to Luffy and say, hey, by the way, let's talk about Shanks for a little bit, right? Only people that have ever done this are probably just Buggy and Rayleigh. And that's just because they were on the same ship with Shanks at one point. So yeah, I think because Loki's bringing up Shanks right now, I think Luffy would want to hear what their connection is. They want to know more about Shanks and what he's up to. So yeah, I could see Luffy freeing Loki and just asking him these questions. Of course, Loki is not a good guy. Last chapter, there was some debate, right? Like, he wants to destroy the world. He's a bad guy. He killed his dad. But maybe he's framed. Maybe he has a good heart. But and then we come to this chapter and he's already talking about killing people. So I don't think he's necessarily a good guy. But who knows, man? Who knows? And then we even have the trickster part, right? People know Loki as the trickster from Marvel or the trickster from Norse mythology. And after he calls Shanks a chicken and Luffy hits him, Loki says he was just joking, right? Like, dude, this guy's a maniac. Of course, I did think it was very notable, though, that Luffy only attacked Loki in Gear 4th. One, it's really cool because we see more Gear 4th, and it's possibly more of the partial transformation that we saw back at the beginning of Elbaf. But two, it's noteworthy because Luffy didn't whip out Gear 5th, right? Because if Luffy whipped out Gear 5th, then Loki would see that this guy, he kind of looks like the sun god, right? Like Dory and Brogy, they saw Luffy's wanted poster. They knew what was up because they literally showed up in Egghead and said, hey, we've come to get you, sun god, right? They knew right away. So if Luffy goes Gear 5th, if he gets the white hair, the drums of liberation, and like the feathered scarf, yeah, dude, like I definitely think Loki would know that something is awry with this guy, right? Why does he look a little bit like the sun god that I've heard of before? So I think Oda's hiding that reveal or that connection for later, and I'm pretty excited for it. I can't wait till next chapter where like Luffy releases Loki and they're both clashing in Gear 5th or something silly, right? I think this is gonna go pretty hard. So outside of the Luffy plotline, we have Zoro and the gang. Last we saw, they were working their way up the bridge up to the Yggdrasil tree, and this time around, we see that Road is still chasing them. Let me see. They say, meanwhile, Zoro and the crew narrowly escape from Road and a gang of pirates. Yo, Road does not give up, which does make me wonder, why is Road here? Because last we saw, Goldberg and Gerd, other members from the New Giant Pirates, they were on their way to check on Road. So what happened to them, right? Did they walk in and then Road just run after Zoro and the gang? Not too sure, but either way, Road is, he seems to be the reoccurring villain in this beginning part of Elbaf. As far as the gang of pirates goes, I don't know what to think of that yet. Like, are we talking about a gang of giant pirates that are associated with the Road, more human kidnappers, Road sympathizers, Road's fan club? I have no clue, brother. As far as why Zoro and the gang are running, I've seen people saying that this looks bad on Zoro and Nami and all them, but you gotta remember, Usopp did not want them to fight the giants to begin with. He said, hey, let's not antagonize anybody until we know what's happening, which I personally think makes a lot of sense. I mean, we are in the land of giants. You don't exactly walk into somebody's home and start beating people up without knowing what's going down, right? We know from Road's perspective that he's just straight up a bad guy, but for the Straw Hats, it could just be one big misunderstanding. That's why last week they didn't introduce themselves to Goldberg or Gerd, just because we have no information about what the hell's going on. So I don't exactly see Zoro and the gang running away from Road and some random pirates being a bad thing or something to slander them over. I mean, sometimes it's kind of silly, right? Like, guys, come on. The Straw Hats just do this, right? We ran from Road for like 2 chapters and then we just turned around and beat him up. Like, we could beat this guy if need be, but he's just not worth our time. And plus, the Straw Hats are so tiny that we could literally hide in the ground, in the snow, and Road just would have no idea where we went. So, oh yeah, one more thing. Going back to Luffy, though. We learned that Luffy is currently in the underworld of Elbaf. So yes, it looks like the lower down the tree you go, the deeper into hell you get. Sorry, I'm not like well versed in Norse mythology, but I do know there are multiple Norse mythologies that depict hell as a snowy, icy place, which I think fits Loki's location pretty well, right? We got the snow, we got the giant tree, we got the chains, like, yeah. I think this is all very, very, very fitting. So I wouldn't be surprised if the place where Zoro and the gang are going to would be considered their Valhalla or their heaven or just their normal lands, right? Because they're going up the tree. So last thing to talk about, last two things, but oh, man, I get so happy just thinking about this, but we get an absolute throwback. We cut over to the giant ship off the coast of Elbaf, and we see that Robin, in preparation of her reunion with Saul, she goes back to her iconic bangs. Guys, we won. As a bang lover myself, right? I think bangs, top 5 haircuts of all time. But Robin goes back to the bangs. The pre-time skip haircut, dude. I love it. I mean, you know, now that we're here, I'm gonna release the beast. I never liked Robin's post-time skip haircut. I'm gonna be honest. It was okay. It didn't hold a candle to the bangs. And now that we're going back, dude, all we need now is the cowboy hat, right? Oh my God. Yeah, that's awesome. Brooke is the one who cuts her hair. Robin is really excited to see Saul again, and I'm really excited to see Robin. But we end off the chapter with kind of a crazy cliffhanger, but we cut over to Saul on Elbaf, and the guy faints. Saul is dying. We don't know why Saul passed out. He just loses consciousness. It could be because of Ohara. It could be because of Kuzan and I guess the lingering effects of ice, if that is a thing. It could even be a disease or a recent battle wound. We're not too sure, but I think this does bring into context a lot more as to why Oda has been silhouetting Saul, right? Because back on Egghead Island, we got the reveal that Saul is alive. But every time we saw Saul, we got a silhouette. You know, Oda hid the face, he bandaged him up, and then even present day, during the Vegapunk broadcast, Oda still hid what Saul looked like. We saw Saul from behind, but he was heavily silhouetted. So I think there's a reason why that is, and it's going to be linked to with why he's losing consciousness and maybe dying here. Overall, it's pretty sad to see, but of course we do have the world's best doctor with us, Chopper. So hopefully Chopper can find Saul and cure whatever ails him. I'm not too sure, right? This could be internal damage. Maybe there's no recovering from it, but hopefully Saul survives to see Robin. Oda wouldn't do that, right? Oda would not kill Saul before Robin gets to meet with him again. That would be cruel. Robin's already been through enough. We don't need to put her through this again. Like, if Saul dies, it has to be after Robin leaves the island or something, man. No way. No way. No way we're stumbling upon Saul and he's a corpse or it's at his funeral. That would just be too damn sad in my opinion. But yeah, like I said, I want to put my hopes in Chopper. You know, Chopper didn't have his big medicine moment on Egghead. He didn't really have a big medicine moment post Wano. He had it with the Ice Oni disease, but when it came to the smiles, he couldn't cure it. But now we have Chopper here. We have Vegapunk here. So maybe they work together to fix Saul up, or at least that's kind of what I'm hoping for. Outside of that, though, that is the end of this week's chapter. Of course, there are going to be more spoilers that come out tomorrow, so stay tuned for those. And yeah, with that being said, guys, I would love to hear what you have to say about the chapter down below. Let me know what you liked about it, what you disliked, and what are your theories coming off of these damn bullet points. And yeah, I'll catch y'all later. Peace out.